At this metabolic rate, tissue should tear itself apart long before the environment notices. The math does not favor survival here, and yet the system keeps running. Only after accepting that contradiction does the subject finally appear, the Humboldt squid. This animal operates with an energy demand that sits uncomfortably close to its own failure threshold, a cold-blooded body behaving as if cold were merely a suggestion. In most oceans, temperature dictates the pace of life. Colder water slows reactions, limits muscle power, enforces patience. The Humboldt squid ignores that contract. Its muscles fire fast, its nerves transmit quickly, its reactions compress into fractions of a second, all while surrounded by water that should be suppressing every one of those processes. This is not efficiency, it is acceleration without margin. The squid's metabolism runs hot relative to its surroundings, meaning energy is burned as fast as oxygen can be pulled from the water, and oxygen in seawater is scarce by default. There is no reserve tank. Every second alive requires continuous intake, continuous circulation, continuous motion. Stop, and the balance collapses. What makes this unsettling is not that the squid is powerful, but that it is fragile in a very specific way. Power here is conditional. Speed exists only as long as chemistry keeps up. The Humboldt squid is built to live near that limit, not safely below it. Its blood carries oxygen less efficiently than that of fish, its gills are serviceable but not generous, and yet the demand from its muscles remains extreme. This mismatch should be fatal. Instead, it becomes the defining feature of its existence. The animal compensates not by slowing down, but by committing fully to a high-output lifestyle, turning the entire body into a narrow pipeline where energy flows fast and failure propagates instantly. There is no room for hesitation, no metabolic idle state. Even rest is partial. This creates a strange biological tension, a creature that must constantly perform at near maximum just to remain alive, in an environment that offers no sympathy for overexertion. The ocean does not reward urgency, it simply enforces physics. And physics here says that every gain in speed extracts a cost somewhere else, usually paid in oxygen debt and thermal stress. The Humboldt squid pays anyway. That payment scales with size. As individuals grow larger, their absolute energy demand rises faster than their ability to supply it, pushing them closer to a cliff that never moves. This is why their lives are short, compressed, intense. Not because the ocean is hostile, but because their own design is unforgiving. The unsettling part is that nothing about this is accidental or monstrous. It is a lawful outcome of biochemistry and fluid dynamics. A body tuned to operate where failure is always one interruption away. When such a system works, it feels wrong, not because it violates nature, but because it exposes how little buffer nature actually provides. If forward motion drops too low, oxygen intake collapses before the animal has time to correct it. That is the constraint. The contradiction follows immediately: a fast, aggressive predator that cannot safely pause. The Humboldt squid breathes through gills that depend on constant water flow, and unlike many fish, it cannot rely on passive circulation while hovering or resting on a substrate. Its body plan offers no stable resting configuration. Neutral buoyancy is imperfect, lift is conditional, and respiration is inseparable from movement. Predation in this context is not a choice layered on top of survival, it is fused to it. To hunt is to breathe. To slow down is to approach hypoxia. This creates a biological loop with no true exit. The squid must swim to ventilate its gills, must ventilate to supply oxygen, must supply oxygen to fuel the muscles that keep it swimming. Any disruption propagates immediately through the system. There is no fallback behavior. What makes this unsettling is not the speed itself, but the lack of a safe, low-energy mode. Most predators can afford inefficiency for short periods, a pause, a drift, a metabolic downshift. The Humboldt squid cannot. Even brief reductions in activity increase physiological stress, forcing compensation through even harder swimming. Energy is not conserved here. It is spent preemptively to avoid collapse. This produces a predator that appears relentless, not because it is aggressive by intent, but because stalling carries risk. In low oxygen zones, which are expanding in many parts of the ocean, this becomes more severe. The squid enters these regions not because they are comfortable, but because fewer competitors can tolerate them. Oxygen drops, and instead of slowing, the squid accelerates ventilation, flaring its mantle, pumping water faster, driving muscles harder to extract diminishing returns. This is a losing equation that only works temporarily. It turns the animal into a moving deadline. Every hunt is constrained by oxygen math, every chase balanced against a rising internal deficit. From the outside, this looks like dominance. From the inside, it is obligation. The predator is not free to wait, stalk, or reconsider. It must keep the system running or accept immediate consequences. This also explains the sudden crashes in Humboldt squid populations. When conditions shift even slightly, warmer water, lower oxygen, disrupted prey availability, the loop tightens. There is no buffer period for adaptation. The animal either maintains throughput or fails. The ocean does not negotiate. It simply reduces supply and watches the equation resolve itself. A predator designed around constant motion becomes trapped by that very requirement. It survives by never stopping, in an environment that increasingly demands rest. Cold water should slow muscle contraction to the point where rapid pursuit becomes inefficient. That expectation holds for most marine ectotherms, but not here. The Humboldt squid carries a localized workaround, specialized muscle and circulatory arrangements that allow parts of its body, particularly the mantle and neural tissues, to remain warmer than the surrounding water. This is not full warm-bloodedness. It is targeted, temporary, and expensive. Heat is generated by constant muscular activity and retained just long enough to preserve reaction speed. In tropical and temperate waters, this already pushes metabolic demand high. In colder regions, the cost multiplies. Heat leaks into the ocean faster than it can be replaced, forcing the squid to burn even more energy just to keep its internal timing intact. This is where the paradox sharpens. The same trait that allows expansion into colder waters also accelerates exhaustion. As climate shifts alter ocean temperatures, the Humboldt squid does not slowly adapt its physiology. It follows gradients where performance remains barely possible. Colder water increases oxygen solubility, which partially offsets respiratory limitations, but it also increases thermal loss. The animal trades one constraint for another, never escaping the fundamental imbalance. What emerges is a species that appears to violate biogeographic logic. A squid associated with warm waters shows up in regions where its ancestors would have failed, not because the environment became safe, but because other species became less competitive. This is not conquest. It is opportunism under pressure. Each degree of temperature change alters reaction rates, muscle efficiency, neural latency. The Humboldt squid compensates by driving output higher, effectively overclocking itself against a colder backdrop. The margin for error shrinks further. In these conditions, feeding becomes mandatory, not opportunistic. Calories are converted directly into heat and motion, with minimal storage. Any interruption, a missed hunt, a prolonged cold current, increases the probability of systemic failure. The unsettling aspect is that this expansion is not sustainable in a comfortable sense. It is a continuous stress test. The squid exists in places where it should be metabolically uncomfortable at all times. The ocean offers no insulation, no shelter from thermal drain. There is only water, endlessly conductive, pulling heat away. The Humboldt squid responds by refusing to slow down. In doing so, it demonstrates a biological truth that feels wrong when observed closely. Survival does not require safety, only moment-to-moment balance, and balance can exist even when the equation is stacked against the organism, as long as energy keeps flowing fast enough. A lifespan this compressed should limit ecological influence. The opposite happens. The Humboldt squid lives fast, matures quickly, reproduces once, and dies on a schedule that leaves little room for delay. 1 to 2 years is typical. In biological terms, this is not longevity, it is a countdown. Growth is rapid, tissue is assembled quickly, and energy is diverted toward reproduction almost as soon as the body can support it. This strategy usually produces instability. Short-lived species tend to fluctuate, rising and crashing in response to environmental noise. What makes the Humboldt squid unsettling is how much pressure it can exert before that crash arrives. Because its entire life is front-loaded, population growth can be explosive when conditions align. Warmer waters, abundant prey, reduced competition, the system accelerates. Thousands become millions in a span of months. Predation pressure spikes, food webs bend, and species that evolved under slower rhythms are forced to respond to something operating on a different clock. There is no gradual adjustment. The squid does not wait for equilibrium. It consumes, grows, reproduces, and exits, leaving altered conditions behind. This is not long-term dominance. It is a pulse. The paradox lies in how such a transient organism can create persistent effects. By the time predators or competitors begin to adapt, the generation responsible is already gone. Another arrives, genetically similar, behaviorally identical, repeating the same pattern. There is no learning across years, only replication across cycles. This gives the impression of relentless presence, even though individual lives are brief and expendable. Energy moves through these bodies quickly and then disperses back into the system, but not before being converted into biomass, waste, and altered prey dynamics. From a distance, this looks like success. From a systemic perspective, it is volatility made biological. The Humboldt squid does not stabilize an ecosystem. It stresses it, then vanishes, then returns when conditions again permit excess. The unsettling part is that nothing about this violates ecological rules. It follows them precisely, just at a tempo that feels incompatible with resilience. Short lives mean rapid turnover. Rapid turnover means faster feedback loops, and faster loops amplify both growth and collapse. The squid's influence is not sustained by endurance, but by repetition. Each generation arrives already optimized for speed, already prepared to burn through its window of opportunity. The ocean absorbs this behavior without judgment. It records the disturbance in population graphs and isotope ratios, then resets. What remains uncomfortable is the realization that impact does not require permanence. Sometimes it only requires arriving fast, consuming hard, and leaving before the cost is fully realized. A nervous system this complex should be buffered by redundancy and reserve. It is not. The Humboldt squid possesses a large, distributed brain relative to its body, capable of rapid sensory processing, coordination, and flexible behavior. Neurons fire quickly, signals travel fast, and decisions are made on short timescales. All of this is metabolically expensive. In animals with long lifespans, such costs are amortized over time, supported by fat stores, slow metabolisms, and recovery periods. Here, there is no such cushion. Neural activity competes directly with muscle for oxygen and glucose. Every burst of coordinated movement, every rapid response pulls from the same limited pool. This creates a subtle but important tension. Intelligence does not make the squid safer. It makes it more expensive to operate. The animal can respond to complex environments, but only as long as energy remains abundant. There is no prolonged planning horizon, no capacity to wait out unfavorable conditions. Cognitive capability exists in the present tense. When resources drop, the system does not degrade gracefully. It narrows. Behavior becomes simpler, more urgent, more repetitive. What feels unsettling is that intelligence here is not a buffer against risk, but an amplifier of it. The brain enables higher performance, which increases energy demand, which reduces tolerance for scarcity. This feedback loop leaves no margin for error. Unlike mammals, cephalopods do not carry large energy reserves. Their tissues are lean, optimized for movement, not storage. The squid cannot coast on past success. Each hour alive must be paid for in real time. This also explains the absence of long-term social structures or learned traditions. There is no biological incentive to invest in continuity when the body itself is temporary. The nervous system is designed to extract maximum value from a short operational window, not to preserve itself indefinitely. From the outside, coordinated hunting and rapid signaling look like sophistication. Internally, they are a calculated gamble. Burn energy now to secure food now, or risk losing everything. The unsettling realization is that cognition, often framed as a protective trait, becomes here a liability under constraint. The Humboldt squid thinks fast because it must act fast. And it must act fast because there is no stored future. When intelligence runs on a system with no safety margin, every thought is tethered to metabolism. The ocean does not reward cleverness. It only supplies or withholds energy. The squid's brain exists at the mercy of that exchange, brilliant, brief, and always one shortage away from silence. Range expansion is often framed as intent, as if a species decides to move outward. Here, it is a consequence of pressure. The Humboldt squid does not spread because new waters are welcoming. It spreads because remaining still becomes less viable. Rising temperatures alter oxygen distribution, shifting the vertical and horizontal structure of the ocean. In warmer water, oxygen declines faster than metabolic demand. For a species already operating near its limit, this imbalance is decisive. The squid follows gradients where the equation is temporarily less hostile. Cooler regions offer higher oxygen availability, fewer competitors, and prey populations not adapted to rapid predation. The paradox is that these regions are also metabolically costly in other ways. Cold increases thermal loss, reduces muscle efficiency, and narrows the already thin margin. The squid enters anyway, not as an invader with surplus capacity, but as a system seeking any configuration where failure is delayed. This reframes its presence in places like the northeastern Pacific. It is not evidence of ecological dominance. It is evidence of displacement. The animal is being pushed by physics, not pulled by opportunity. Each expansion represents a recalculation, not a conquest. What feels unsettling is that the squid carries its constraints with it. Wherever it goes, the same fragile balance applies. High energy demand, constant motion, limited reserves. The environment does not become safer just because it is new. It merely shifts which variable is most dangerous. The Humboldt squid survives by continuously repositioning itself along a moving edge, always one step ahead of conditions that would otherwise exceed its tolerance. This makes its future difficult to predict, not because it is adaptable in a flexible sense, but because the system it depends on is changing unevenly. Some regions will briefly favor its physiology, then quickly turn against it. Population booms will be followed by rapid disappearances. Presence will feel sudden, then inexplicable in its absence. The ocean will not mark these events as significant. They will register as data points, anomalies smoothed over time. The discomfort comes from recognizing the pattern, a species that persists not by finding stability, but by continuously outrunning collapse. Not an apex ruler, but a body tuned to operate where the margin is thinnest, drifting across the map as those margins shift. In that sense, the Humboldt squid does not represent the future of the ocean as control or domination. It represents the future as throughput, energy in, energy out, no pause, no protection, only motion until the balance finally breaks.